Hello, everybody. Welcome again, a ConTech Exec podcast. We're back again. I am with Alex Teplitxky today from SmartPM. Alex, thanks for being here, man. It's been a little bit. We've been trying to get together, but now you're finally here. I enjoy it.
Thanks for having me, Robert. Good to be here.
Man, okay. So everybody wants a smart PM. At one point, I thought I was a smart PM, and then, I realized I wasn't that smart. But then, what is smart PM all about? I just kind of jump right into it. What does smart PM do, and how does it help in the construction world?
Yeah, well, to your point, smart PM, well, it does stand for Smart Project Management, Smart Project Manager. It is not, so our platform, our product, is not a project management platform like Procore, but it works on top of those solutions. But really, our mission is to help fight delay in construction from all angles, right? So we want to help owners have projects that end on time, on budget. We want to help contractors understand their projects, understand the performance and health of their projects, so that they mitigate risk, reduce all their overhead expenses, reduce all the waste and profit margins that happen anytime there's a delay. So really, we are an analytics solution to the market, very unique. And I can tell you more about it.
I guarantee you, there's tons of waste, there's tons of delays, and you're neck deep in it. I would say, because construction has all of that and more, and plenty of people out there trying to figure out how to solve that. So before. Just let everybody know, we do have a little bit, little conversations before we get started. So you and I were talking just before the program about going to ground break. I want to kind of get into that with you just a little bit, just to kind of highlight the fact that, going to these conferences is, if you've been to a few of them, if you've never been to one, you need to go. You need to understand what it's like being at a big conference and seeing, like I say, there's 10,000 people with 100,000 problems, and they're all looking for a place to start. And so Groundbreak I felt it was kind of much the same. And you've been to several Groundbreaks, Alex. I liked your view on it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, I actually used to work at Procore a few years ago.
Yeah.
So my first day at Procore when I joined Procore was Groundbreak. That was my first exposure to it. I love, I think of all the conferences, and I've gone to honestly 20, 30 different ones. I would say Groundbreak, if you haven't been, go to it, right? Everybody's there. All the vendors are there. It's a great vibe. It's a great place to just, network with people, meet new people. I think the fascinating thing, and what I hear a lot, people love it because they hear that they're not alone with their problems. And, being in this business, I mean, I speak to customers every week, and obviously I know that there are a lot of patterns, but I think a lot of individuals out there don't necessarily, take a step back, and they sometimes think they're alone in it. And then they go to these conferences and meet, 100 other people, and they're like, oh, you also have that issue. You also face that challenge. And it makes them feel really heard, and it feels good. So, again, if you haven't been to Groundbreak or to any of those conferences, highly recommend it. And it's a heck of a fun time, right? I mean, I wasn't there this year, but I think it was a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say, we were talking about it. It's the best place to meet people finally, kind of, face to face, where you can, shake a hand, you can talk shop, and really kind of get to know somebody. And it is funny. There are a lot of folks out there. We all do it, right? We all have that issue where we think we're on an island somehow, and like we're the only ones with this problem. It's just probably because it's right in front of us, and we're sitting there trying to rack our brains like, who do I call? Developing that network at some of these conferences is kind of a cool little deal, because you'll get a lot of information from folks. We're all fairly revealing about our issues. It's not that they may be nuanced to a client or customer or a project, but they're really kind of the same things. Whether it's, man, I can't get my materials on time. Hey, I'm having trouble with, labor shortage. And I can't keep good help. My retention is terrible. Or I've got good help, but they're spread too thin. There's that one too. It's like, how do I get more, or how do I get more out of the folks that I have? Because I can't, it's not like I can go to the hall and go pick some more up, anymore. Right. Because even the halls are, short of good help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guarantee you, there's going to be a solution to most of your challenges at Groundbreak within the exhibit hall,
Yeah.
within people that you meet there. I mean, there's everyone goes there. Again, like, I mean, I've been to a lot of conferences and, some are pretty niche, right? There's conferences for data centers, there's, pre-construction or scheduling conferences. I feel like Groundbreak has been a really good, just everyone is there, right? And everybody's
Yeah.
curious. I think that's the big thing, right? They're just curious.
I did see that across the board as far as, selection wise. Now I've gone to some of the bigger ones too. Like I go to Nika, and CFMA has some of the some of the so, but again, they're big conferences, a lot of people and a lot of vendors show up. But what you'll find, especially at these big conferences, not just Groundbreak, but all these others, you're gonna find, hey, if you need something for procurement or materials, guess what? You're going to find something there. If you need something for your payroll tracking, time tracking, production tracking, whatever, you're going to find something there. You're also going to find stuff on the project management side. You're going to find out things that help you with the project management side. You're going to find stuff for BIM, augmented reality, capture, reality capture. There was a lot of reality capture this year. I thought that was pretty interesting. I talked to a few folks about that, which I think is a cool deal.
Yeah, and they're always the fun demos too. I actually got freaked out. I think it was a couple of years ago. I demoed this technology. It was a safety, augmented reality technology. You put the headset
Yeah, yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah,
and you're walking on a beam like 300 feet in the air, and you have to go through like all the safety protocol. And
yeah,
I'm here on the ground with this headset on, actually profusely sweating because I actually was convinced that I was 300 feet in the air, and I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I really need to be careful here and clip myself. And then that was really fun. So there's a lot of little things like that too that you get to see.
Yeah, yeah. What's even scarier than augmented reality? Because I've been there. I've walked the steel, and yeah, it's definitely pucker time when it comes to that kind of thing. So, tell me a little bit more about kind of smart PM and its integration and how it helps. I kind of just need a little bit more. Let's go a little bit more in depth with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, so I mean, our team, we had I think 12 of us at Groundbreak, having a great time. Met hundreds of people there. So we are an analytics platform. We work with the schedule the schedule file as the base file. We believe the schedule file is the richest data set in construction. I mean, when you really think about it, it contains all the information you need to understand how your project is doing. But it's very complicated. Not a lot of people are able to interpret a schedule very well. And there's schedule quality issues, there's integrity issues. So what SmartPM does is really help uh, all different folks make sense of that data, whether you're an owner, sophisticated, less sophisticated with regards to understanding schedule files, if you're a general contractor, whether you're a project manager, a scheduling manager, a scheduler, a project controls professional. So all different sorts of folks with different levels of understanding, we help them make sense, or consultants, we help them make sense of their data so that they can make better decisions, so that they can understand where are they standing with regards to their project, the single project or the portfolio of their projects. Where should they be spending their attention? So if you look at a map, like we provide you, for example, a portfolio view all of your projects in in the region, in the country, for example, and you can quickly see if there are areas where, oh, hey, I've got these five, healthcare projects here that look like they are having some issues. Maybe I should pick up the phone, call that team, and ask how those projects are doing, or let them know that you're seeing some, hey, those projects are very compressed right now. Like, what's going on? Right? Or I'm seeing some schedule quality issues, which means that your schedule files are actually unreliable right now. We can't look at the schedule and really interpret what it means or have a reliable end date because there are holes in that schedule that need to be fixed before it's trustable, right? So we help you make sense of all that. We have all sorts of dashboards and graphs. It's really as easy as taking a schedule file, whether that's directly from Primavera P6, um, Asta Power Project, Phoenix, other software, or if you have your schedule in Procore or in Autodesk, Construction Cloud, we integrate with these solutions. It's very seamless. The schedule file goes into SmartPM. Every subsequent update goes into SmartPM automatically. You don't really have to touch anything. And then those trend graphs really start to populate and show you how you're doing. What are some areas that you need to pay attention to, and really tell that story and help you with your, weekly, monthly reporting that is so time consuming, and usually is looking back, right? So you work for a month and then look back at what you did, spend a lot of time trying to understand that, report back on it, and by the time that you report on it, it's already too late. A lot has already happened, right? So with SmartPM, it's really cutting down that analysis time so that you actually are in a position that you can do something about what you're seeing. Right. So you're seeing things, you're seeing alarming signs, maybe. You can double click on those signs and you can fix them uh, before it's too late, which is usually what the case is.
I gotcha. So things like in the procurement phase or whatever, when you start talking about your scheduling, you're dropping in your materials, your equipment, your things like that. It starts to recognize, hey, by the way, you think that this is going to show up at this point in time, but it's really not going to be there. There's a gap there. There's some sort of anomaly. Is that what we're talking about here?
So with regards to procurement specifically, it won't tell you if your equipment or if your material is going to be there on time. There are solutions for that, by the way, that might
Right.
help. That's not really where what we specialize in, but let's say that you had allocated 5 days for a certain activity. It took you 7 days. It's obviously a very simple example. We help you surface all of these things, all of these little items one by one, and kind of give you a macro view of that, and say, hey, look, things are starting to look really behind now. Like those activities that were in the critical path are starting to get delayed. You might want to do something about it. Or, right now you're compressing your work. You're saying that you're going to be able to do, 40% more work in the second half of your job. Is that really realistic? Right. I mean, historically, looking at the previous, weeks or month, this is what you were able to complete. And now you're kind of compressing the schedule more and more. You're getting into the danger zone, right? And
Right.
so this is, I mean, there's so many things to look at, and talking about it out loud, it sounds almost obvious, but it really takes a long time to figure out. I mean, our brains just can't do it quickly, right? It would take all week just looking at files day in, day out to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I
It's
can
just like,
tell you. Yeah, I can tell you from experience. Like, I know when I'm compressing it. I know, and it maybe if I work in a smaller job, smaller scale, intuitively, a good PM, a good superintendent, they know. They know it's like, yeah, we're stretching it. We're not really gonna make this, but we're gonna try, right? And we're gonna maybe have to work some in extra hours and things. But again, what it does, and I think it's an interesting point, shows I don't know, it sounds to me, it shows maybe leadership or an ownership or whoever, like, where the BS factor is kind of in the schedule creation or the schedule execution, because there is a lot of BS factor in there. Because a lot of times, you try, as a when you're estimating you estimate your schedule just as much as you estimate, your budgets. There's fluff factor. There's things that you can't control, right? You don't necessarily know what the weather's going to be. You don't know what the ground conditions are going to be out there, especially if you're working with like heavy loads and cranes and things like that. You have ideas where you're going to do placement, and I'm talking I'm talking smaller jobs. I'm not talking about the Turners of the world, but I'm talking to mid-level contractors, subcontractors, those kind of things. You've got a basic idea. You haven't done a full analysis of it all. But again, I think products like this give you that ability to be like, okay, I'm moving into a bit more of a digital age, and I need to have kind of the digital receipt that says, hey, right, hey, take a look here. Let's not fool ourselves into thinking that this is possible because, like you said, historically, this has not been the case, right?
Absolutely. I mean, optimism bias in construction. I mean, we know it's there. In fact, most
It's
likely,
everybody has it. Everybody wants it because they want their project to finish on time.
and in a way, if we didn't have optimization bias, we wouldn't have some of the best, projects that we have out there, right? I mean, if we had known from the start how long it would have actually taken to build them, they probably wouldn't exist. So in some cases, optimism bias is good, but in some other cases, for it's just really important to have a clear view of what's actually happening. There's a lot of money at stake, and there's a lot of wasted profit, on the line. So we really try to help different parties to understand, to have visibility on that. And really, it's also about standardization, right? You want to be able to look at all of your projects in the same way, not have person one interpreting your data in one way, person two or team number two interpreting in a slightly different way. If you're a construction executive, like that's not going to be helpful to you, right? Because everybody's going to add their little flavor to it. So having a system that really makes that homogeneous for everyone across the board is super super useful.
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest. I like a little flavor. I do. I like a little flavor. I like the gunslinger attitude, but again, I don't necessarily know that it's helpful. You're right. Construction executive is probably going to sit there and go, yeah, that's, this guy over here, he's, shooting from the hip. And this guy over here is kind of, a little bit more, analytical using digital design. I think he's going to lean that way, especially in the future. So I get it. You talked about, construction optimism. I heard a story and I thought it was hilarious. Elon Musk and Tesla obviously built their factories, kind of out here in Texas. And apparently there was a story going around. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying this is what I heard. So Elon at some point had put out some sort of mandate that we're going to finish these factories in 2 years. And the footprint of the factory was X amount of square foot, and it was going to take certain cranes, certain machines, certain things like that to get these pieces in place. And apparently there weren't enough of these cranes even on the planet to even perform exactly what he thought was going to happen. I mean, this is the idea, okay? And this is where I think the optimism comes from. It's like, well, we'll just go get some more of that, and if we don't have it, we'll invent it. And that's the attitude of some folks. I mean, Elon, obviously, if he didn't have it, he'd figured out how to invent it. But again, in the construction industry, I think that happens a lot. It was like, because it used to be the thing where if you didn't have enough folks, you just went back to the hall and you got more, right? You go get more people to do it. Well, those facilities, those things, that skilled labor, sometimes it's equipment, sometimes it's specific equipment, supply chain, those types of things. We don't have it. It's not necessarily there. It's not readily available. And so it makes the construction, the actual scheduling of construction, that much more complicated, right? Because as before, it was like, well, just go get some more people or go get some more equipment. Today, even with all of our technology, randomly, we don't have enough, right? It may not be there in whatever locality that you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that point. And I think, one thing that I've noticed too with a lot of construction technology is a lot of it is rooted in theory. There are a lot of solutions a lot of smart people out there in construction tech that have ideas. They look at it kind of like more academically, or they look at it on paper and they're like, wow, I see something's inefficient. Like, wow, you know what? I'm going to have a software and it's going to solve for that because it makes so much sense to solve for it. And it's like, yeah, well, there are hundreds of solutions like
Yeah,
that
point
where
solutions.
they
I get
don't
it.
at the end of the day, it's to your point, it's breaking because there aren't enough cranes in the world or something else of that nature, or it's a human thing. And I think there's a lot of disconnect out there with, you know, some founders who haven't really walked on the job and they're looking at it from a logical perspective. And yes, your idea is logically sound. It just doesn't necessarily work in the real world.
Right. It's like, you know, it's if you use the crane example, right? You've got a lift that you've got to make, or you've got several lifts that you've got to make to a certain height, right? So you're going to need a certain size crane, right? And you're in a locality. So you've got certain options in that locality. Well, guess what? What if somebody else already has that crane rented? You're waiting. Either you're waiting or you're trying to find another vendor. Well, do these other vendors carry? Like if you're looking for a 450-foot crane, do they have that? Well, if they don't have it, what are you going to do? Where are you going to get it from? What's that cost going to incur on your job? Again, it's details stacked upon details that all then come down to affecting the schedule, right?
Absolutely.
And affecting the layout. Another thing I want to talk to you about, and this is, I don't know, the argument of, the CPM schedule, right? Critical path method, or whether you want to use like the lean, tact, whatever all those different things are. Does Smart PM work with, say the lean type of constructor who maybe doesn't go critical path method? How does that work for those folks?
So, I can't talk too, I'm not an expert in lean or tax, but what I will say is that we really take that CPM file, we really believe in it. If it's done well, if
Hmm.
it's fabricated well and studied well, there's so much information data that you can interpret in your CPM schedule. So we really truly believe that that is fundamentally very, very important and you can be very successful with it. Um, I think it's additional, right? I think you can still have other, you can use you know, lean or tact additionally, but I think we having a CPM schedule that is that has integrity, that is built well, um, is still very, very much needed in construction. So I don't, I guess I don't have too much to add to the debate of one versus the other, right? If I told you anything, I would probably ruffle some feathers. I don't know enough about it.
There's nothing wrong with ruffling feathers. I really don't. Again, we've got to this whole thing of well, it's like Ford or Chevy. What's better? I don't know. They've both got great qualities. You know what I mean? You could probably provide an argument for both, right? I if I and again, I know just enough about it to be dangerous because again, like I said, I'm an old school gunslinger. It was like get out there and get that job done, son. And so that's, that's the way I kind of come at it. But I look at it and I see the arguments and I see what they're saying. And I want software to, again, to be able to be adaptable to multiple situations. I want technologies to understand that construction construction has to lead the way on how their technology works. It's kind of like to your point where you see a technologist out there, somebody is saying, "Oh, I see this problem. There's going to be this there's an area here where there's such inefficiency. I'm going to solve it."
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah,
I like the way you're thinking, but you know,
absolutely. And this is really where, I mean, where Smart PM comes in is really to help you see what's going on your job and help you make better decisions from it, right? So it, it it's just really difficult. Whatever method you're using, whatever your strategy is, it's still just very difficult to understand what is happening currently on your job. You still have to do a lot of analysis, look backwards, look at a lot of stacks of paper. And when you have a system to do that, that does a lot of the calculations for you and that surfaces insights, it just makes your life so much easier. Right. And so that's kind of like what we do. It doesn't replace anyone, right? It just replaces a lot of the number crunching or a lot of the manual analysis they're doing. But then the decisions on their hands, they get to, they see where they, if they see a problem area, they decide what to do with it. But at least we bring it to you in 30 seconds instead of, 5 hours
I
of
got you.
crunching on the weekend.
Now, Do you guys recommend utilizing Smart PM in the kind of pre-construction phase when you're building out initial schedules and initial ideas? Do you recommend, folks using that to kind of help highlight some of these areas where, hey, by the way, there could be a potential problem here in this schedule design?
So it's more like when you have a full schedule file, like a master schedule, uh,
Mhm.
once you have your baseline, you can run it in Smart PM. We have a schedule quality checker that'll run the schedule file against 40 plus different metrics to tell you if if there's missing logic or any other attributes that make that schedule file reliable as a tool or not. Right. And that's very important because we did a recent study and we found that I think it was 88% of baseline schedules today don't meet the quality standards that make that schedule reliable to begin with, right? So you're going into the project with this plan, with this roadmap, and before you even get started, you can bet that that is not going to be a realistic timeline. Like things are going to go wrong. You can't make decisions off of that schedule, right? So we help you figure that out very early, right? We help you highlight the areas in which that schedule file is lacking in certain, in certain ways in integrity to help you fix that, so that now your schedule file is actually a reliable tool to understand your projects. You can make decisions from it, you can interpret it, and it's going to be a true interpretation, not just garbage in, garbage out type of thing.
Yeah, I get you. Let's talk about, is this, clean data is a big deal,
Hmm.
especially clean historical data, that kind of thing. Kind of even getting started on this thing. There's a lot of ways to starting off on the wrong foot, kind of thing. Do you guys address that with the folks before you get them signed up?
Percent. I mean, that's our step one, right? I mean, like I said, if you have bad data, it's unreliable, right? You can't make decisions from it. So we don't want to get used to. We don't want your bad data. We don't want to make you any promises. Like we're
That's
not
your
in the business. Yeah.
that's your next ad campaign. That's your next. We don't want your bad data.
Yeah, we
That's
don't want your bad data. And if you don't want, if we have, prospects, I mean companies that we talk to, and if they don't have the will to look into that and fix bad data, then we'll politely, tell them that we're not a good fit to work together, right? Because we
yeah,
want to help you succeed as a business, and it's not going to be a good reflection on us if you give us bad data, or it's actually you're not giving us because you're using our platform. We're not doing the work for you. But if you're going to bring in bad data and you're going to get, bad interpretation, like you're not going to like our product. It's not
yeah,
going to help you, right? So you need to have that willingness to improve, right? And so we make a decision if someone just doesn't. I mean, this doesn't happen often, right? Because we wouldn't be talking to someone. That person that's not interested at all is not at Groundbreak conference, right? They're
right,
they're
yeah.
they're on the job
I
site,
get
their
it.
heads down. They're not looking for things. They're not calling us up. They're not going to our website. So by the time someone reaches out to us, they've most likely already acknowledged that they have an issue or that they have a challenge, right? It's just difficult and they're looking for help. And so when they look for help and they talk to us, and a lot of people watch our webinars. We have, our CEO Mike Pink is a, you know 20-year consultants looking at delay analysis, like schedule, like forensic analysis and schedule. I mean, he is a true expert. So he does a lot of, webinars. We do a lot of education tracks, and people listen to that. And by the time they come to us looking for help, um, you know, uh, one of the first things that we want to do is fix the schedule quality issue right away. That's step one. You don't go into analysis. You know, we don't try to overhaul a company's, project controls processes before we fix the schedule quality issue. So that's the number one thing, number one step. And we have, a whole playbook for that we work with our customers. And once that, schedule quality or data quality step is done, that's when we move into the next step and to further analysis. So yeah, I mean, really, especially in this day of machine learning, of AI, I mean, I think, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I mean, I think everybody knows this. The whole garbage in, garbage out saying has never been more true than now. So,
Yeah.
and we're very, very aware of it.
Yeah.
and continue to talk about that.
I think there's a part of me that thinks that that has been the issue with adoption in technology for construction for quite a while. Since technology started to work its way in. It was this doesn't work. I'll say pre COVID or say 2010, 2000 to 2010 kind of area. This is not going to work because we've got bad broken processes and this data, whatever that we're trying to feed it is not good. They don't want to say that it's not good, but and maybe they don't believe it. I things like productivity. That's one of my big things I talk about is monitoring and measuring productivity. I'm not talking about progress. As far as progress, I'm really talking about productivity. If you're really going to break it down to the kind of the nuts and bolts of an operation, everybody's been trying to copy this manufacturing model of productivity where you can measure the hour, you can measure the quantity, those kind of things. But that's in a controlled environment. You know what I mean? You've got one person, same person every day on that factory line or whatever they're trying to do. They're doing the exact same process. Construction is a little bit different. So it's very, very difficult to just exchange that model into construction. So, but construction, you can come up with some modeling that says, hey, we can get a good idea of exactly how well we're doing at specific things by measuring whether it's hours and units and those types of deals. But what always ends up happening is that the assumption that you're doing very, very well turns out to be absolutely not realistic to when you start measuring it, and then it starts to insult people. you know, it start people think it's bad data, but it's not. It's just insulting data. It's to say that your original assumption, what you thought was going on, is not accurate.
Mhm.
I always say there's that old saying of the truth will set you free, but it'll piss you off first. Is true. It's absolutely true because when you find actual hard data that goes against maybe what your gut feeling was or what your hopeful feeling was, it causes friction. And so then you've got, well, I don't know if I like this, right? And especially the people that are kind of in the spotlight of said data where they're like, yeah, man, that's not true. That can't be true. Or you find out somebody's been pencil whipping things. And I think this is what's going on, and probably early on, was the fact that once you start realizing that hard data, facts, digital information with rules and rule sets and logic behind it starts to reveal the the areas of weakness or the areas of failure, and it becomes more evident. It then starts to our egos sort of get in the way a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was very, beautifully said, uh, eh, spot on, really, and, yeah, I've definitely experienced that a lot, in the past, construction tech companies that I've worked at as well, right? It's something that comes up all the time. I mean, a few things on that. Because when we actually released our report, I think it was in June, we analyzed a lot of schedule files, and it wasn't all good news, right? There were a lot of, and this was, by the way, this was not looking at a specific company. This was an aggregation of, years of files from all over the place, right? And when I started seeing some of the numbers, some of the averages, I was a little bit worried because I thought, oh man, we're gonna release this report, and it's not like high fives, like we're all doing great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I was just ready for people to start like throwing tomatoes at us or, being pissed off. And that's not at all what happened. So I think there's something that's changing. Like people are realizing that, like, you know what? We realize there's an issue. It's kind of really hard to hide from it now. There are a lot of digital solutions that are kind of helping us figure out, some of the areas that we're weaker in, or the vulnerabilities in our industry as a whole. And I think a lot of people are ready to just uh, open their minds a little bit. And it's not about finger pointing, but it was very difficult to see things, or it's very difficult to, even build a really good schedule is not easy, and to maintain it. I mean, we didn't have the tools to do that at scale. So how can you blame the people when, they're stuck for hours and hours doing the work and there's no playbook and it's all manual. So, you need to have the tools to help you do it well. But the other thing I'll say is that, I mean, the reality is there were issues, right? It's not a perfect industry for whatever reason. Again, not finger pointing. To your point, it's not manufacturing, it's not a controlled environment. So there are things that are going to happen. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of money on the table, right? And there's a lot of money being thrown away. And wouldn't you want to know that, right? Whether you're the owner and this is your money, or you're the GC and you've got, this profit margin erosion happening, and that's going to, maybe you'll be able to pay salaries or not based on, delays that are happening, especially if you're a smaller business. So, do you want to have your ego unbruised, or do you want to save your business and make more money? I think it's a really important question for people.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that's the I don't know that there's any owner, of a company that's not had their ego bruised from time to time. Obviously, the mistakes are the lesson points, right? Those are the points where you're gonna make mistakes, it's gonna happen, you need to realize them, you need to recognize them, and you need to make corrections. I think the best thing about stuff like SmartPM, software, and other applications as well. It doesn't matter. I think the best thing about the digital age is it gives you a baseline to start having conversations, okay, that aren't contextual, right? It's like we've got some hard evidence here, that basically says this was the trend. Uh, we thought we were doing this, but here's really what's going on. Let's take a look at this. And to your point, this is not about finger pointing. And I want to tell you that to any company that's out there listening, any technology company, I don't care what you're doing. When you're measuring KPIs and you're measuring, data points and all these kind of things, you're providing analysis. Guess what? This is not a finger pointing opportunity. The analysis is a baseline for a discussion, folks. It's a point where you can start to go, how do we get better? And stop looking for the home run, folks. I'm telling you right now, your idea of, gaining at some 30% gain or 40% gain is unrealized and will continue to be unrealized. Look for the 1%, look for the 3%. You know what I mean? How can we improve incrementally to get to where we need to go? Because I think what happens, no matter the level of the argument or level of the conversation that you're in, everybody seems to think that we've got to make this giant leap for mankind, right? No, we don't. What we have to do is we have to take this baseline information that we're getting from a smart PM and we have to say, okay, let's get real narrow and look at what this says. What does this say about us and what we're doing? How can we fix a portion of that? And then once we fix that portion of it, what's next? Is there another level in there that we can then add to that? Give us a little bit more. And what you'll find over time is those little increments then led to that, big increase at the end. And it goes back to that whole thing of when you see 10,000 people walk into a conference and they're all looking around. They all got the same problems and they're trying to start. Where do we start?
Hmm.
Okay. Start with one thing. Start with one thing. Use something like a smart PM and then, get your analytics down on that part. Well, there's a good start, right?
100%. And it is overwhelming. I remember, I mean, I worked at Autodesk starting in 2013 and, Procore 2018, and the market was so much smaller. There were, you went to these conferences and I mean, you had time to gift all of these,
Yeah.
startup or solutions. There just weren't too many.
Yeah. He had
But
8 vendors.
now,
Yeah. Had 8 vendors on the list, right?
I mean, and everybody's promising, to your point, like, oh, use our solution, you'll save 30% or reduce, risk by 40%. I mean, if you take all these solutions by now, like, we should be so optimized, right? But that's just not the case. But yeah, I agree with you. Start with one thing. I mean, we tell people like, look, if you use Smart PM and save yourself one day of delay, I mean, that one day is very meaningful, right? There's a big cost to that. Of course, we want to do more than that, but just start small, right? And that's what we do. I mean, we have a customer success team, professional, and we take things slowly. If you want to go fast, that's on you, but we really recommend you to start slow and stay steady, right? Like start really understanding a new metric maybe every week or every month, right? I mean, we have dozens, I mean, I think a couple of hundreds of potential, graphs and trend lines to make sense of, but you don't have to learn everything at first. Just pick a few things that are very important that make sense to you, and keep adding on to that. Keep getting more sophisticated over time. We launched a new product a month ago. It's called SmartPM Essentials. So we have controls, which is our full suite of analytics, and it's got those 100 plus trend lines, graphs, etc. Like many ways to cut and slice the data, and that's for our more sophisticated customers. And so recently, we actually launched a new product, Essentials, which is really a pared down version, but it's meant for more mid market contractors or lesser sophisticated owners, or anybody who just feels overwhelmed by where to get started and needs like just an easy way in. So even the way that we display the data, we've toned it down. We've made it easier to interpret, so it's just less digitally overwhelming. And the idea there is really just start your journey here, right? And then as you progress, as you make sense of that data, then you can unlock, more data points, but at least
Yes.
get started there, right? At
Yeah.
least get your data in, standardize your processes, make sense of it, and then, take it that will be a better step than not doing it, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You know, I've often had the conversation, why would let's not go down the road of trying to count the grains of sand on the beach kind of thing. That's not a great idea, right? It's the idea that if you have more than three priorities on your priority list, you don't have a priority list, right? You really don't. And simplifying at least gives you a starting point from um, basically, what is it, Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, right? You gotta, you're at zero, basically, if you're not utilizing, technology to some extent, right? Even if you are utilizing, you have technology, you've got a technology stack, but you're getting maybe 30% out of it or 40%, whatever it is. It doesn't feel useful for some reason, even though it's supposed to be. We got to start somewhere, right? Either either you need to reduce that tech stack to just utilize what the most effective pieces are, or it's not it's not effective enough, so you need to add a piece that makes it effective, right? So you need to analyze that, but you've got to start somewhere. You got to have, what are your three priorities, right? Get started with that. Keep it simple.
Absolutely. I should probably write that down for myself as well, because I usually have more than three focuses for a day and then it gets lost. But yeah, I agree. I think there are so many solutions that people can add to their tech stack, and I think it's really important for people out there to think of what should your essential tech stack look like, right? Like you have a limited budget, and budget is not just money, right? It's your time, it's your focus, right? It's
Yeah.
the attention that you have, it's the people on your team. How much do you expect them to learn? So
Yeah.
really think of your essential tech stack, things that are really, really going to move the needle, right? And focus on that. And until you've mastered that, don't move on, don't adapt. Even if you have a little bit more budget for something else, you may have the money, but the cost budget, but you may not have the time and attention budget from your team to learn something new.
I always look at that as like a real estate purchase. It's like you may have the money to go out and buy some land, you know what I mean, or buy some houses. Say you want to do investment properties or something like that. But the question is, do you have the holding capacity? Meaning, if that piece of property that you have goes unrented for a while and you've got to pay the nuts and bolts of it, guess what? Do you have enough to hold that property for that time until it's, not rented anymore? Or do you end up, in over your head kind of thing? And I think it's the same way with technology. Do you have enough? You can go spend a lot of money on it, but it's not going to provide you, if it doesn't provide you the return on investment, right? Because it takes 2 years to get to it, or because you're only getting 30% out of it. Again, we have to evaluate that. And, just a shameless self plug, that's what I do for folks, is I actually try to help companies make these right decisions on the software and direction. Do they have the right tech stack? Do they need to reduce it? I'm always a big fan of pull it back a little bit. You probably got a little bit too much tech. You're you're paying for maybe a little too much. But again, that's a matter of sitting down and analyzing. Let's have some serious conversation. Again, pick your best three kind of thing. Let's have some serious conversation about these things. What's it really getting you? Have you looked into it enough? And I think that's exactly what SmartPM does for the construction industry at this point, right? It's like, hey, let's get this in focus based upon your schedule. All right, to ask, is this real? Or are we just sniffing unicorn farts? Because I'm telling you right now, this, if you don't have that analytic, if you don't have that idea in front of you, you might as well be sniffing unicorns. That's for, that's my opinion. But
Couldn't have
again,
said it better.
I've got a lot of opinions. So anyway, well, let's do this. How do people get a hold of SmartPM? How do they get in to get a demo, to get their stuff going?
Yeah, I mean, very, very simple. SmartPM.com. You can fill out the demo request form. I personally see all of them as well. We'll be happy to get on a call. We've got a lot of webinars and educational opportunities as well that are not, trying to sell SmartPM. So I would say for anybody who is listening, trying to make sense of where to get started with regards to, metrics, performance, health metrics in construction, sign up to our newsletters or, request a demo and we'll send you invitations to webinar. We've got lots of, free educational opportunities. Again, not trying to sell necessarily on the software, but just trying to teach on just the journey to project control, the journey to good data hygiene, to good scheduling practices, and so on and so forth. And then otherwise, you can also find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions.
There you go. Well, folks, I will have all of this information in the show notes in the description on the YouTube channel. I will also have some of it in the Spotify channel if you're one of those folks that likes to just do the drive time listen to our ConTech Exec podcast. Alex, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe we've already been on here for 45. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to stay in touch with you guys. I'm going to have to call you back probably, next year, 2026, and see how that's shaping up for you. Would that be all right? Okay, great. Well, listen, everybody at the ConTech Exec, thank you for visiting with us. Share this with your friends. Go check out SmartPM. If you need to know more about them, like I said, the information will be in the show notes in the description below. But until next time, everybody have a great week and, keep building buildings. We'll see y'all.